In this video, we'll be covering how to export data back out of the Aquarius system. So we'll be covering the different formats and also the different Aquarius data types as well. So you'll notice here I've plugged in 5 different Aquarius data types. We've got rating measurements, HydroML or rating curves, a simple file attachment, a JPEG. We also have a rating point list and also time series data as well. So the first thing we need to do is double click and enter that toolbox. And then you'll notice that each of those data types are in their own kind of tabs, under their own tabs. So we've got all the different time series, the rating curve, rating measurements, and so on and so forth. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if you haven't plugged in a particular Aquarius data type, that tab will be grayed out. So no HydroMLs, the rating curve tab will be grayed out. Okay, so let's talk about quickly this kind of GUI. We've got under each of those tabs, we've got all of those data types listed, and then we have the port properties of that data set. Also on the right hand side we have the different options of formats. So for time series, for example, we have CSV format, EcoNet format, and also the Aquarius optimized package or AOP format. Moving on to the rating curve, we have basically the AOP format and the USGS HydroML format. Rating measurements basically allow us to export as AOP format only, and the same with rating point lists as well. And file attachments, we get the option of both AOP format and the file attachment itself. So if it's a JPEG, you can export back out to a JPEG file. Okay, so let's talk about the time series and hit the export button. And let's talk a little bit about this export to CSV GUI. First thing is the time range. The default is the entire range of that signal, but if you wanted the most recent, for example 6 months, you could select from the drop-down menu, or you could specify a specific time range that you want to export. I'm going to leave it on the entire range. Then again, we have the time series and the port properties pane. In the center of the screen, we have all of the different available columns. So basically, if you flag data, graded data, given approvals to sections of the data, what you can do is basically select whether it's the raw data or the corrected data that you would like to see, the raw, the corrected, the flags, the approvals, the grades. And the way we do that is by basically selecting that particular kind of column of data and then clicking the add button and adding it to the right hand side, which is basically the number of columns that you want in your file. So the first thing that you will have is the date and time stamp column. Then in this case, we've got an example here where I've added the raw data and then another column with the corrected data. If I remove these, what I could do is show you that under the raw data, I selected values raw, and if I'd flagged any data, I could do that too, select that and add it. But I'm also interested in the values that are corrected, and also if I've made any flags or grades, I can add those too. Then what you could do is give it a header, as I've done here, and then select from the format that I want the date and time to be shown as. So in this case, the default is month, day, year, and then the time, but you can select any of the other options. And not to forget about the default comma separated delimiter, you could also select from tab or semicolon. Now we've got 3 checkboxes here. The first one being append the time series statistics. So it's a basic statistics that you get for each of those columns that you can get exported at the bottom of your file. So if you check that box. Also, you can export the entire correction history connected to this time series data set. And that again will be exported back to that CSV file. And also a glossary of all that metadata. You can get that exported as well. So all of it goes into one file. The last thing I want to talk about is the ability to save as a template. So basically, if you're interested in exporting the same kind of parameters and columns, and also these kind of options at the bottom here, what you can do is save this as a configuration, so basically a template, and the next time you want to export data, you would load that configuration or that template, and that exact format or that structure of that file will be exported. So what I can do is hit the export button and then save it to a particular location. And hit the save button. And that's basically it. It's now saved in my location and I can go and open it up. Now the other formats that we have is an EcoNet format, so basically allows you to specify a location and save that file. So there's no structure to be defined. It's a kind of saved structure. And the same goes for the AOP format as well. You basically save that structure and then you can reload it into Aquarius at any time. Now there's a few advantages to quickly talk about when it comes to AOP files. So AOP files basically contain the entire correction history of that data set. So when you export an AOP file, when you come to re-import it into Aquarius, it's a very fast and efficient way of importing. You don't need to define the structure. It's the language of Aquarius. So it's a very fast and efficient way of kind of re-importing Aquarius. The other thing to keep in mind is it's a great way of kind of backing up data for storage purposes. It's highly efficiently kind of compressed, so it doesn't take up that much space. But it's a great way of backing data up so that if you do, for whatever reason, kind of mislay data or lose data, you've always got a backup of these AOP files. And they're great for recycling and kind of appending to. So that pretty much covers the export to file toolbox. The other kind of formats are pretty similar. So for example, rating curve, if you did want to select the USGS HydroML format, it's pretty much the same thing. The moment you hit export, you just basically need to save it in a specific location and it gets saved. There's no kind of definition of a structure required. So that concludes how to export data back out of the Aquarius system.